Welcome back to Crazy Enough, the podcast for dreamers, doers, and the people bold enough to believe they can build something from nothing. This is episode 5, and I'm Mary, your host. And today we're talking about the mirror. And when I say mirror, I don't mean the one that you check before you head out the door. I mean the mirror of your life, reflection. The mirror is actually really feedback. It's the way your choices, the relationships, the patterns, and sometimes even rock bottom moments show you who you are and what you're becoming. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Let's be honest. But that doesn't necessarily make it bad news. It actually makes it useful. Because life is reflecting something back to you. And you have a chance to grow, to shift, to expand. And as humans, I would hope that that is what we want in life, right? To always be growing, to always be shifting and pivoting and expanding and becoming a better version of ourselves. And if you've been on this journey with me, you know that in episode 2, we talked about finding your why. In episode 3, we talked about betrayals and setbacks and moving onward. In episode 4, we talked about faith and heartbreak and finding your calling. And today, we're talking about mirror and how to read it, how to learn from it, and how to move forward with momentum. So let's start with one of the most common mirrors. Comparison. I think we've all done it, right? We've all scrolled Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever social media channel it is, and you see somebody who's absolutely crushing it. They've got the business, the audience, they've got the vacations, the trips, the house, and I think your brain, it immediately just goes, well, they've got it all figured out. Why should I even try? I know, because I've been there. And if you've ever felt that, you're not broken, you're human. Okay, so now I want us to pause there because I want us to actually zoom out for a second. And I want us to all understand that every single person that you look up to or that you compare yourself to, we have to understand that they started from zero. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be thinking like, well, that's not necessarily true. There's some people who were handed something. I mean, there's a small percentage of nepotism in the world. We get it. But like the reality is that most people, they start from zero. They weren't handed an empire. They had a first messy attempt, a first awkward post, a first scary yes. And really the difference between someone who starts and doesn't start is that they kept going day after day, little by little. So what's the comparison really about? Because most of the time, right? It's not about them. It's about you. That little sting of jealousy, that's the mirror. It's life reflecting a longing that you haven't acted on yet. It's something that lives inside of you that you probably want to share with the world, or something that you want personally. And for me, here's a story I want to share. And if you listened last week, you've already heard this story, but if you're new, this will be the first time. So I used to be a wedding planner. And at the time, I thought it was just simply my career path. Looking back, though, I can see that it was a mirror because what I wanted most was marriage and commitment. And since I wasn't giving myself that, I actually placed myself in the center of it every weekend, surrounded by the thing that I longed for most, but didn't have. And when I didn't name that longing, that's when the jealousy crept in. I thought, why is this so easy for everyone else? You guys, it wasn't about them. It was the mirror. And here's the good news, because I want to share good news too. I want this to be uplifting as well, not just like a Debbie Downer podcast. But I think that once you realize the jealousy is a mirror, you can actually turn it into fuel. Instead of asking why them, I want you to try to ask, what is this showing me that I deeply want to? Because really, at the end of the day, jealousy isn't the villain. It's a flashlight. And I know it's kind of cheesy, but it really is. It's a flashlight pointing you to the next step. And comparison is just one of the many mirrors that we're going to talk about today. I think one of the biggest mirrors that we have is the people in your life. It's your relationships. And I think it's probably the sharpest reflection, like I said, because relationships, whether you want to believe this or not, they're mirrors, every single one of them. And for a long time, I kept attracting the wrong kind, not just personally, but inside my business too. And if you've listened before, you know my betrayal story. And that was brutal. It was one of the toughest things that I've ever been through personally. But even after that, I realized, I was still letting in toxic energy. And there's one employee that stands out. So let me share that story with you. And because on the surface, he seemed amazing. He was always cheerful, always upbeat. And he even made a thoughtful gift for Wilshire's birthday. If you guys don't know me personally and you don't know who Wilshire is, he was my 18-and-a-half-year-old dog who passed away. And what this person did is he went onto my Facebook and my Instagram and he grabbed all the photos of Wilshire and he actually printed them and he put them in a box and he wrote this really nice note about how inspiring I was and how he looked up to me as a boss. And I thought, you know what? Finally, someone solid. And then overnight, it flipped. Clearly, I did something, I said something, who knows? Maybe it had been festering for a longer period of time. But he emailed me and basically said I was the worst boss, that he was miserable, that he couldn't stand coming to work, and that he felt unappreciated. So I'm thinking, wait a minute. So 1 month I'm inspiring, and literally, no joke, 4 weeks later, I'm the worst human being on planet Earth. I'm terrible. And I realized in that moment, I was like, crap. The mirror is back. You know why? Because I was still attracting dysfunction, not because I necessarily wanted it, but because it felt familiar. It was that up and down dynamic. It had become my default. And what I learned from that, and I think I'd known it previously too, but it was sort of another little reminder from the universe. But basically what it is that what you allow in your life, you actually attract more of. So the relationships that you say yes to, even when they drain you, is actually really just a reflection of what you believe you deserve. It's a hard pill to swallow, right? I know. But here's the good news. Because once you see it, you can shift it. You can raise your standards. You can say no sooner. You can attract people who are aligned, people who light you up inside instead of burn you out. The mirror doesn't just expose the problem. It also gives you the power to change it. And I love that so much. How powerful is that? See, because if you ignore the mirror, here's what happens. Because I know you guys probably have that question. But here's what I believe is that the same lessons, they keep showing up. It'll be different names, different faces, but in reality, it's the same story. So let's talk about breaking the pattern because that's important. And like I said, patterns, I believe they repeat until you change them. And for me, it meant seeing the same toxic dynamics play out again and again. The patterns were repeating. First, it was betrayal. Then it was the toxic employee. Again, it was the same story, different person. But by the second time, I was stronger after the betrayal story because I was journaling, I was building by noon candles, I was learning to process my pain and build resilience. So when dysfunction walked through the door again, I was able to spot it sooner. I didn't let it take me under. I had the strength to say, this stops here. And breaking cycles, it doesn't necessarily mean that you never slip. We are human. It means that you just recognize the pattern faster and you choose differently. So if something keeps repeating in your life, I want you guys to swap that why me for what is this trying to teach me? Because the mirror, it won't stop showing the lesson until you've learned it. And when you finally see it, that's where freedom and joy really begin. And I think also sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom for that moment, right? For the mirror to actually get your attention. Because how many times have we been sort of shown something and then we don't take action, but then it shows up again and it gets louder and louder and louder, right? Eventually it's going to get your attention. And I had one of those nights. It was a moment that broke me, but it was also the moment that set me free. And it was the night before one of the biggest meetings of my life. I was exhausted, I was stressed, from all of the travel, but I was also excited. And I walked up to the hotel desk and I hand up my credit card and my card gets declined. And I'm like, that can't be. Like I called the bank like before I left. I cleared off all my credit cards. I did all the things. I took all the necessary steps and precautions that I think we all go through before we travel. And so I'm like, all right, well, here, let's just try this card. And it was declined. And I'm like, sir, do you mind just like swiping the card one more time, please? Like something must be going on. And so he swipes it again and declined. And he's giving me that look. I think you guys all know the one. And I'm sitting there, my suitcase in my hand. There's a line of people behind me. Jonathan's asleep in a different time zone. His phone's on silent. There's no way to get a hold of him. My parents are in a different country. They're in Spain. And it's 11 o'clock at night. And there's no room. I have no backup plan because I only brought these two cards. And I have like literally no options other than I guess we got to walk outside, sit on the curb with my suitcase. Now, that didn't actually happen because I got a hold of someone, just so you guys know, but there was a good 15, 20 minutes where I really thought that was my reality, that I was going to have to walk outside, sit on a curb with my suitcase the night before a huge meeting. So before, I actually get the room, right? I sit in the lobby and I'm with my suitcase and I'm just crying. The tears are just flowing down my face. And I'm like, why me? Why does this always happen to me? And then something strange happened. I had this deeper realization, and it wasn't immediate. It was maybe like 30 minutes into me sobbing and crying, right? But I realized this isn't about a room or a declined card. This is a wake up call. Life is asking, when are you going to start listening to yourself? And that night, it became a turning point. It was the night that I gave up alcohol. And not because I'm an alcoholic, but because I just said, enough. I'm done numbing the stress, the pain, the things that I want to escape from. And I'm ready to change. And it was what also allowed me to start this podcast. So how beautiful is that? But at the time, it did. It felt like rock bottom. But it was really, when I look back, just the beginning of a breakthrough. It was the lowest of lows for me, right? But sometimes those lowest of lows, they can actually create the clearest mirrors. They can show you exactly what you can't continue. And if you're in that season too, I want you to not just ask, why me? But I want you to ask, what is this teaching me? What needs to shift right now? Because the breakdowns, they can really become the breakthroughs. And that's where I believe that courage is actually born. I think that big decisions, they open the door. So for me, I made big decisions that night. But really, the shift happens in the daily choices. And that's where I want to talk about routines and consistency, because it's very important. And if you guys have also been listening, you know how much we talk about consistency and showing up. But the routine and the consistency, they're not the same thing. And you can agree to disagree with me, but here's my definition of it. Routine to me is comfort. It's autopilot, right? You wake up, you have coffee, you go to the gym, it's the same drive, you get the same drink from Starbucks, it's the same playlist. And yes, routines can be grounding and they can be helpful and they can provide structure, but I also think that routines can trap you. And I think consistency, on the other hand, is actually growth. It's choosing to show up daily for what actually matters. And for me, it's my morning walks with Cooper. Every day for about an hour, I talk into my phone, I record my thoughts. The people walking by me think I'm probably crazy, but I'm okay with that because that's actually where most of these episodes are born, right there on my walks while I'm moving my body. And the walk itself is the routine. but doing it every day is the consistency. And the consistency is what allows you to build the momentum. So I want you to ask yourself, what do your daily habits actually reflect back to you? Are they pushing you forward? Are they keeping you stuck? What's happening? Because the mirror, right, it isn't just about the big moments. That's what we said. The mirror is actually really in the little ones, because the small steps is what creates that big transformation over time. Not in a day, but in 6 months, right? If you're consistent and you do the same thing every single day, I guarantee you when you look back, you will see results. And if you don't, I want you to holler at your girl, because I'm telling you, I don't believe you. And there's one more mirror that changed everything for me. It was my voice, understanding the power of my voice. Because speaking your truth is vulnerable. It's scary, and I think we can all admit that. Starting this podcast, it was scary. I wondered, who am I to do this? What if people judge me? What if this hurts my business? These thoughts, they went through my mind. And you know what? They still pop up from time to time. But that fear, it wasn't a sign to stop. It was a mirror. It showed me where I needed to grow. And that's what I love most about the mirror, right? Is it's constantly showing you areas where you need to grow. And one of the things that I realized in that moment was that my voice is powerful. Your voice is powerful. And it's not because it's a polished or universal and people hear it and you get thousands and thousands of downloads. It's because it's yours. And your voice carries truth just like mine. And that truth, it has weight. So when you use your voice and you build confidence and trust with yourself, little by little, what happens is you become the person that you were meant to be. So if you've been holding back, I want this to be your nudge. Because the thing that you're most afraid to say might actually be what someone else needs to hear. And how beautiful is that? That your words can actually be transformational. They can help somebody else. All right. So let's wrap this up, because I've been blabbing for about 22 minutes now. And I just want to make sure that we've got all of this information consolidated into one little nugget for you. So the first mirror that we talked about was comparison. And it's, about jealousy and how jealousy points you to what you want most. And then there's what I believe the sharpest mirror out there, which is the relationships, because the relationships, they reflect back your patterns and also what you believe you deserve, your worth. And then we talked about cycles and how they keep repeating unless you break them. The lessons keep showing up. And then sometimes you have to hit rock bottom. Sometimes you have those moments. Some people may not have those rock bottom moments, and that's okay too. But what happens when you break the cycles, right, is you have the breakthrough. And then we talked about routines and consistencies and whether you're stuck or whether you're growing, like as a human being. And then we talked about voice and your willingness to use it, and really understanding that our voices are the most powerful mirror of all. All right. So your challenge this week, because I love giving you guys challenges, I want you to take 10 minutes. I want you to look in the mirror, whether literally or figuratively, and I want you to ask, what's being reflected back to me? What's ready to shift? What lessons am I ready to learn? And then I want you to take one small action today, because we all know that momentum, it loves movement, but it also loves consistency. And I'd love to hear your story. So please DM me on Instagram at Crazy Enough Podcast, or you can email me, mary@crazyenougghpodcast.com. And if this episode spoke to you, here's how you can help me. You guys can subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can share it with a friend who needs it. You can leave a quick review, because it truly helps more people find this show. And if you want a tangible reminder of your journey, please check out my candle line, bynoon.com, because each candle reflects a stage of growth. It's a little light for wherever you are right now. And today we're talking about mirror. And the last but not least, you guys can also join the community and you can subscribe at crazyenoughpodcast.com so you never miss what's next, because we've got some exciting stuff coming up. Until next time, stay bold, stay brave, and stay crazy enough.